As I said, the three phases. The first one is to deal with the major distortions at the macroeconomy and institutional level. The second phase, actually I sent PowerPoint, and when you had a chance, you will see a very nice picture of a plane taking off. That is phase one. And then a plane establishing its altitude, and that is the stability of growth, which will be achieved through broad-based institutional reform, which will take some time. And then, hopefully, in the last 3 to 4 years of the 10-year program, we will be in a position to achieve structural transformation, so that we will rocket, into a knowledge-based, high-productivity economy, so this is really the vision, and lots of details in the presentation. But I would like to focus on phase one, especially to say that phase one is based on 5 pillars. The first pillar really is macro stabilization, restructuring of the budget, the financial sector, because as economists say, you can actually experience economic inefficiency if you mismanage at the micro level, agriculture, industry, and so on. But if you really mismanage very badly at the macroeconomic level, then you have a crisis, because nothing will work, and this is the stage where we are. The second very important pillar is peace building. And since we have Professor Suleiman Dibello with us here, the Commissioner for Peace, it is quite important for us to emphasize the pillar of peace, because the government has actually shown considerable commitment to peace. On our side, from the economic sector, from the economic sector of the government, from the Ministry of Finance perspective, we would like actually to launch a development fund for peace in order to actually support the political process that Dr. Dibello and his colleagues are leading. We are thinking that most of this humanitarian assistance, which are very important, and I know your forum is quite keen about humanitarian assistance, and it will continue to be important role for humanitarian assistance. But I think at least as some margin, it would be important to start thinking seriously about transforming into or transiting into sustainable development in the 3 areas, because virtually now we are in a state of peace in most of these areas, and we should actually start thinking about the people in this region, while politicians and leaders in the freedom fighters and the government start thinking about the politics and about the power sharing and all these kind of things. I think as development specialists and economists, we should start thinking seriously about the welfare of the population in these regions. And I think addressing the issues of land disputes, resettlement of IDPs, improving the livelihood of the population in terms of the social sector, education and health, and water and other social services, and very importantly in terms of enhancing the agricultural sector. I know that many NGOs and many members of this forum have accumulated and achieved also considerable experiences and have made a considerable contribution to various localities. Our job actually is now as a government is to bond these experiences across the entire conflict belt. And now, unfortunately, I should say 4 areas, because the Red Sea region now is defined also as a conflict zone. Not a political conflict, but communal conflict. So I think it is very important for us to emphasize this, and I would welcome really the support and the cooperation of your forum on this particular area, given your expertise and your commitment in terms of resources and expertise to the issue of humanitarian assistance in these areas. The third pillar is to create jobs for youth. This is a revolution of youth. Youth constitute 60% of the Sudanese population, and actually they are the major stakeholder who has everything to do with the present and the future. And unemployment among youth, not only in Sudan but in the entire region, but in Sudan is estimated as more than 45 up to 50%. So really addressing unemployment of youth in the short run is very important until and when the time comes when we really create value and the private sector start to make an impact in terms of modernizing agriculture, in terms of agro-industrialization, and so on. So we think that, for example, supporting youth-led SMEs on areas, especially in the urban services, such as including them in the value chain or in the production chain or the service chain of dealing with garbage collection and recycling and all those kind of things, would create lots of jobs. Also, I think the transport crisis which we see now. In fact, one of the 20 most urgent projects that we presented to the Friends of Sudan includes dealing with the transportation crisis in Khartoum and other cities. And I think expanding the already bloated public sector bureaucracy is not going to be very effective. But challenging that bureaucracy and complementing that bureaucracy with a smart partnership with youth-led SMEs supported by partners and donors, especially financing public transport vehicles that are powered by LPGs, for example, and then using that in order to build partnership with youth-led SMEs might be an interesting project to consider for many of you. And the government will also do its share in terms of the local component and in terms of the effectiveness of the organization of such an initiative. I should also, in terms of the youth, mention a very innovative and important initiative by a multilateral institution that is truly African, which is the African Development Bank. The African Development Bank has initiated a program, $40 million program for training and empowering young entrepreneurs in agriculture. And I would think that this would be a very useful experience to mainstream and expand not only by bilateral donors, but also by the World Bank, which I understand also is considering this, because our objective really is to incentivize young entrepreneurs to actually embrace activities and business in agriculture, because they are amenable to adopt new technologies and to modernize the agriculture. The fourth pillar is about institutions, because institutions are very important, and we have actually, in my opinion, a very ambitious but very important plan for that. One of these institutions, which is actually comes as a matter of necessity, which is, of course, the population census. The population census is very important, obviously, not only for development planning, but also in our case for elections. and it's very critical, and we should start this process as soon as possible. Combined with it is the agricultural census, and the agricultural census is also very important for an agricultural economy like ours. As I was advised by our colleagues from the UN, Ms. Sun, that this project alone, the combined censuses of population and agriculture, could actually provide opportunity for up to between 30 to 50,000 youth, where training could actually be, introduced in the context of this, as well as a short-term employment, maybe 2 years, 3 years, which is really going to be very helpful. We are also planning to initiate very soon, establish an investment and competitiveness authority, which will review all the investment laws and hopefully come up very soon with a very lean and coherent, regulatory infrastructure that coordinate all the regulations between the federal and the state level, and hopefully designing a one-stop shop window for licensing of investment. Another innovation, which I think would be very important and now will bode very well with the grain of thinking in the international development literature and practice, including, for example, Bill Gates' G2P, from government to people, is actually a biometric identity authority, a Sudanese biometric identity authority, which would build on the civil registry that the Sudanese Minister of Interior has already accomplished. It needs to complete and revise, but it covers now about 33 million Sudanese. It's an online information that the World Bank colleagues are looking at, and also our colleagues in the Ministry of Finance, because it could eventually lead to a very important institutional innovation and institutional development that will help us reform, the social safety net, the delivery of health services, and could also improve the financial inclusion and financial deepening in the economy. There is, of course, in addition to that, plans for a major household survey and possibly also an industrial census. So all of these are important preconditions for the major macroeconomic reform that we plan to do. Finally, the other pillar is reintegrating Sudan into the global financial system. And this would be an opportunity for me to briefly explain what I could describe as achievements of the meetings and the activities around the annual meetings of the World Bank and the IMF. As you know, Sudan is subject to an ensemble of US sanctions, most notably those associated with the state-sponsored terrorism. This has been discussed at the Friends of Sudan and also at various meetings associated with the annual meetings of the two IFIs, as well as individual meetings with the US Treasury Department, as well as the US State Department. Obviously, the SST, we claim as Sudanese government that now is the time for us to be relieved of this heavy burden. There is very good expression of goodwill from the US government, but they always say that it's a process. We hope that this process will be accelerated and expedited so that we can actually move forward, because the opportunity cost of keeping Sudan under the SST is just devastating for us, because the Sudanese people have paid a heavy price. We know that the Sudanese youth have paid the ultimate price, and many of them have actually endured huge hardship. The Sudanese people in general has expectations, and I think at least some of these expectations should be answered. And for us as a government to answer this expectation, even while we manage some unsustainable or difficult to achieve expectations, our very legitimacy and the future of the stability of Sudan, and given the importance of Sudan as a region, neighboring many countries as a passage from sub-Saharan Africa to North Africa, as a coastal country in the Red Sea, which is becoming a very important strategic water passage. I think it's very important to take all this consideration, but we will do our part. We will continue to engage, and we hope that sometime soon, that Sudan is allowed to break free from the SST. But in the meantime, there are some good achievements. One such a significant thing is that after several meetings with the U.S. Treasury and the World Bank officials and the IMF, we were advised, after very strong discussions, that actually we can start the process for the path to IDA and debt relief. And this is a very significant thing. So what we have done is actually now we know for sure that there is a roadmap, and this roadmap will start with a staff monitored program with the IMF, and the staff monitored program itself will substantially hinge on our own vision that we are able to communicate to our partners in the IFIs, the World Bank, the IMF, and the African Development Bank. Even though for the African Development Bank, we hope to be able to engage them at the highest level, since we didn't have a chance actually to meet, for example, with the presidents or the vice president of the African Development Bank, but they do actually know our program, and they have been there at the Friends of Sudan. So we hope that actually all these institutions now, they know exactly what we wanted to do. We want actually to build the infrastructure, especially in terms of the pillar of the institution, for the next 5 to 6 months. And I forgot to mention also, we plan to do a civil service reform and also consider salary and wages adjustment. So we would like actually to, once we prepare the ground for direct cash transfers, is to actually initiate a very ambitious plan. But even though it is ambitious, we will make sure that it happens, because we are working on all of these institutional requirements, prerequisites, and then we will be in a position, once we actually effect the cash transfer and the revision of the wages and salaries, then we will be in a position to transit from this unsustainable situation and unify the exchange rate. And we hope that we will be able to be in a position before the end of 2020 to reach a decision point. And we were assured by our colleagues, by the top leaders of the World Bank, that actually the World Bank has an automatic instrument for clearance of the arrears to the World Bank, and also the African Development Bank also have this instrument. And we need to worry about clearance of the IMF, but I think our partners in the international development community, especially bilateral donors, would hopefully assist us on that. And so the whole process will be dealt with together in terms of arrear clearance and the debt relief. And once that happens, we think that by by the beginning of 2021, Sudan will have access to IDA. And given the size of the population, we expect to have a substantial grant from IDA. And I think once that happens, we will be in a position to open up for the international investment through the IFC, International Financial Corporation. But let me say that even before that, the budget for 2020 will actually experience a significant improvement relative to the past. First of all, we expect to increase to double the fiscal effort to 12% or maybe 15% at least of the GDP. And some estimates suggest that we may go as high as 18 to 20%, because the exemptions are so widespread, so much so that we have actually received recommendation from a task force that came up with about 33 recommendations for significantly enhancing the capacity of the revenue authorities and the customs authority. And so we would like actually to, in fact, we have already started perhaps the fairest SDG-based budget in the history of Sudan. So we will actually build the budget according to an SDG process, budgeting process, focusing on education and health and social services. And I'm actually quite excited about this because I had an opportunity to actually exchange views with Professor Jeffrey Sachs, who is one of the leading thinkers on SDG development strategies and SDG budget process, so much so that actually the IMF Fiscal Affairs Department is now working very closely with him to devise a budget process for low-income countries and middle-income countries. And we are actually using one of his papers in order to actually train our staff in the federal government as well as in the various regions, which we call wilayat, in order to put together an SDG-based budget. So that is from the social sector, which I think will be an important achievement in terms of shoring up the welfare of the population that has been substantially depleted, especially I think the middle class, urban middle class. The other aspect of the budget, and here I want to give a lot of credit really to our partners in the Arab development funds, because now the Arab Fund for Economic and Social Development, among other Arab development funds, will actually come quite substantially in supporting enhancing the infrastructure, air transport, and especially projects related to slaughterhouses in the producing regions of the Sudan, because really we want to open markets in sub-Saharan Africa, places like Nigeria and Algeria in North Africa, in addition to our traditional markets in Egypt and the GCC. We will also have significant investment in horticultural products, where we would like to target the GCC markets by fresh horticultural products from at least 3 or 4 regions in Sudan, in addition to medium to longer term plans on the gum Arabic processing. So I would like to say that even before we reach the decision point, we expect the budget of 2020 really to take off in terms of the development aspect. And most of these development aspects will be financed by foreign investment associated with the Arab funds. Hopefully this will be the beginning before the IFIs and other bilateral donors would be in a position to invest in Sudan. So with this positive note, let me close and thank you again for the opportunity to address your distinguished forum. Thank you.